right, so if you're just tuning in, it's another week with Minnesota Well Done. I'm Christos, and this is Lance Ramm with R&R Cultivation.
Great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you on, man. I've been excited about this day for actually probably about a month now. A friend of mine showed me y'all's Instagram page, and I kind of fell in love immediately with what you guys were doing just on Instagram. So you guys are mushroom cultivators, and I think that you really have keyed into the aesthetic part of your business. At least that's the first compliment that I have to give to you. It's a beautiful page, and it really shows the beauty of mycology to people who are fairly ignorant of the process.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll take that and roll with it real quick.
Yeah.
Massive shout out to co-founder Nick. His sister is actually the one that's designed everything from the get-go. You know how that works. Family definitely helps out. And did a lot of quote-unquote pro bono stuff. All the artwork that we currently operate with in the packaging was done by her and her partner. So it's been fantastic to have it in the family.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah. Shout out to, what's her name?
Michelle.
Michelle.
Yep.
Shout out Michelle. It looks great. So I want to dig in right away. First of all, what does mushroom cultivation really entail? I think that a lot of people don't realize what goes into it at all. I mean, I'll be honest, myself included. I'm really fairly ignorant on the whole situation.
Yeah, it's not packaging back here. It's not this easy, for sure.
Yeah.
When people kind of get their mushroom packaging on shelf or go to farmers markets even, they're beautiful. How do I cook them? That's always the first sort of intentional response. But then the term cultivation, it was very purposeful for us to choose. And the R&R, I should back up, is Ramm and Robinson. So Lance Ramm, Nick Robinson.
Oh, there you
also
go.
kind of a play to rest and relaxation. Like, we're never going to see that owning this operation. Of course, resiliency, reduce, reuse, recycle, all those kind of cool things. But cultivation literally is like the human process of interacting and growing, essentially. So in deciding to go with cultivation rather than foraging or other plant-based processes with just growing good nutrient-dense food, we chose mushrooms, of course, and wanted to cultivate because it's something we can do. Again, as a packaging states, Urban Farm in Roseville, Minnesota, like, it is the epicenter of our demand. I wanted to really start an operation that could actually supply good food to people within the hub of the demand. And so it doesn't make sense for us to have a farm 6 hours away,
Right.
harvest, transport, carbon footprint, the whole 9 yards, when I can actually grow and pull for my supply. It's fantastic. So my longest delivery is 40 miles. I'm able to supply 85% of my demands within, again, that like 30 mile spectrum. All the co-ops and Lunds and Barleys, all of our great markets are very close to us.
That's super cool. I didn't even think about the transportation aspect and how you're saving on basically any kind of emission, right? Just from not going anywhere, really, like just staying inside the hub. I love how you said that. Now, can you explain to me a little bit like, you grow them in blocks, right? Is it a hydroponic system? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, and to clarify, not like Legos, but that good use of the term block. So it's literally a 10-pound brick block of substrate, and so the substrate for us it's all USDA certified organic hardwood. So it's hardwood, various varieties, and it's kind of kicked with spent soy hulls, bran, other. Not so secret, but we don't want to give away the recipe for what goes into the substrate. But it's all organic, it's all natural, no additives. That is the sort of the food for what is called mycelium. So mycelium, as I've explained many times at the market, is what you don't really see. It's the life, the essence, call it the tree, the root, the everything that produces the mushroom. Because the mushroom is just a fruiting body. It's like a tomato, a cucumber. It's the end product, the reproductive element, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's the part that tastes great. The mycelium provides the mushroom, and so the mycelium is actually encapsulated within this block itself. We provide it the food. It eats through it for a little while, about 2 weeks to about a month, and then it's ready to kind of come out. Envision a mushroom on a tree, if you've seen that. It's the same thing as like a big tree, essentially. We open up the actual block, the bag, and it fruits. We can do it that way, and we have our sort of vertical farm, as you would call it, shelving within these grows that we build. We're able to kind of stack it high and grow and be very efficient in what we do, so we can actually output now about 1,500 pounds a week of mushrooms.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's okay. For people who are not aware, I mean that's a decent amount, man.
It's crazy. So when you do the math on our facility, I mean we start in the basement, so 3x3 grow tent. But when you do the math, realistically speaking, with a good healthy mushroom farm, even with making our own blocks now, all that entails as far as space, we can put out about a pound of mushrooms per square foot per week.
Wow.
So you can't touch that with a farm. And
not at all.
The amount of water that we're using, the amount of actual resources in general that we're using as far as a sustainability perspective, I haven't done the math in a while, but versus like cattle farming, not even on the same page.
Yeah.
So we're producing this nutrient-dense, protein-rich, vitamin D, dense food year-round in Minnesota, in the environment, in urban environment that it's actually being consumed. So that's the grand vision.
You're ticking all the damn boxes, Lance.
Yep. I mean, I'm trying.
No,
I'm
I
trying.
love it, dude. I really, really do love it. That is, it's even better than I had kind of anticipated. So just, excuse my awe at first. So one question that's kind of been burning inside since I, knew I was going to have you on the show. How many different species of mushrooms do you grow, and can we get into that a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah. Like how do they differ in the way that you grow them? Are there different nutrients that you have to give them? Are there different time frames? Because I know that in terms of speciation, there's so many different kinds of mushrooms and fungus in the world, and they all have kind of like their own little quirks and stuff.
Yeah. I guess I'll back it up and get micro. Or I should say macro first, then micro.
Yeah.
So speculation puts at about 1.5 million different varieties of mushrooms, given some soil samples across the world, and that by far outpaces like anything else on the planet. So the fungal kingdom is very vast. Of that kingdom, there are what are called cultivars, and so you have to actually train mycelium, i.e. mushrooms, to grow in an urban environment on the wood and the other things that you tell it to. I mean, you can grow a mushroom in a shoe, to be frank. It'll learn itself. It's fantastic. But there are, when we first started a couple of years ago, there were about 30 cultivars, and now there's over 100. So it tells you the popularity of mushrooms is definitely growing, pun intended. And so what we do is we looked at first for the ones that were the most resilient, that were the most in demand, and what others had grown when we were first starting out. And we settled on about 8 species of mushrooms to kind of fill that demand, and also, to be frank, to be able to grow them efficiently, effectively, and not, lose out on a lot of revenue and mistakes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We grow oysters across the board. So blue oysters, golden oysters, we grow pink oysters, black pearl oysters, king trumpet oysters, to name a few. And they're just more meaty, they're more resilient.
Yeah.
I guess let's use the word, the inoculation and colonization time is much better. It's about 2 weeks. So they turn around from when you actually put the spawn through the actual substrate.
Yeah.
They colonize, and then they sit in the shelf, and you put them in the grows, and they grow very effectively and efficiently. They taste great, protein rich, all those, check boxes. The nuanced ones that we grow very well are lion's mane, chestnuts, piopinos, and you caught us at the right time. We're actually expanding now too, to offer different varieties. So right now, shiitakes are the name of the game. Everyone loves shiitakes. So those are a fantastic mushroom. We're currently housing about 1,800 blocks of shiitakes in our grow.
Wow.
They take a long time to colonize, so there you go. Just tons and tons and tons of shelves of shiitakes. It's quite the sight to see. But Lunds and Barley is actually currently is rolling us out with offering different varieties too. So it's our first jump into mushrooms that we've not grown, which is weird territory. If you'd have caught me about 3 months ago, I'd been like, oh, all those other mushroom providers that just resell mushrooms, like they're not doing it legitimately.
Yeah.
We're growing, we're making our own blocks, all those sorts of things. L&B gave us the opportunity to do this, and it's helped us, to be honest, stave off COVID a bit and hire some new employees, expand our wholesale program. We're now offering creminis, port caps, all the kind of front end mushrooms that you envision, as well as sourcing local forage mushrooms. So like morels, chanterelles, maitake will be in our portfolio. And what that does for us is it just allows us to diversify a bit, and again, kind of front load COVID and say we can actually have this expansive variety to offer to people and train them on getting better mushrooms, because we're organic across the board, and as well, even the creminis and such we're sourcing from a local farm in Wisconsin, as opposed to West Coast big mushroom mecca. But circling back to what we do, again, like between 1,000 1,500 pounds of mushrooms per week that we're growing ourselves and putting out, and it's just phenomenal. It's a crazy machine that we've developed, but it's working. It's working.
It sounds like it's working. And I had just assumed that you were doing kind of the leading people to mushrooms that you don't grow, just because, as a chef, right? Mm-hmm. That's usually what we would have a forager, right? And the forager, if he couldn't get the foraged mushrooms, he knew a guy who could get the foraged mushrooms, right? And to not have that as part of your business model, I think would, like you said, to get through things like COVID, could be definitely not good, to say the very least. Now,
absolutely.
I'm kind of curious as to, do you know the major differences between so basically like a chanterelle or something that I would get from a forager? Is it not a cultivar species? Is that basically why I can't you can't teach it to grow on a specific substrate? It has to grow in certain conditions and in certain soils, and like around certain plants and trees.
Yeah, let's just keep geeking out. I love it. This is really what brought me to mushrooms in the first place. Is just really going down the geek path and just loving all the information.
I live in the geek path.
Exactly.
Man. I was raised in the geek path, man.
Don't know anything else. What is norm?
Yeah.
So like the cultivars that I've spoke of, it's like a list, as you will, like when you're going through your seed catalog from even just a residential farmer perspective, like what do I want to grow? These eggplants and there are certain varieties that just grow really well, and they've been adapted to do so from the wild, essentially. And so with the mushrooms, they have to be trained to grow in the environment and on certain substrate. There are those that grow in hay. There are, of course, those that grow in the hardwoods. All of the hardwood varieties are tree mushrooms, essentially.
Yeah.
I have a preference for them because they actually have much more nutrient density. They taste better. They have to break down what's called lignin in the wood.
Yeah.
And so they eat through this stuff and just do this fantastic job. And on the output, you get a lot more antioxidants, a lot more things that sort of humans can take in as nutrients. And to your point with the morels and chanterelles, like they don't take well to that. There's this whole kind of crazy recipe meets magic to morels.
Yeah.
They're a wood sort of species, but they grow on the ground, and it's like after a lightning strike on the 3rd day of November, after a rain when the humidity is this point and temperature soil is this point, and and it is such a long list of things that have to happen that I just give it up to nature and say, that's fantastic. I'll let it do its thing. I love that we have it as our state mushroom, and people go out and forage for it. So I want to support that environment too by offering it through my thoroughfare. Say, come to me, give me your morels. I'll give you a fantastic price point per pound, and then I'll give you the outlet to sell them.
Yeah.
So we wanted to be part of a program for for quite some time, actually, from the first days of market, when everyone that came to my mushroom stand was like, "Where are the morels? Where are the morels?" And I'm like, "I'm a cultivator, and here's what that means."
Yeah.
You know, as part of our conversation here, it's like going through that whole talking point. People just, it was fascinating to be able to see people's faces when I tried to explain what cultivation really was.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're in a warehouse, basically a greenhouse within a warehouse.
Yeah.
We're doing this. It's not just, you know, going out in the forest and finding mushrooms, but we're trying to provide that sort of embodiment as far as respecting nature, respecting the process, and of course the mushroom.
I love it. Let's take a quick break,
Yep.
and we'll dive right back in.
Sounds
good?
great. Perfect.
Cool. So.
If you know about them, then you're the only one that knows.
Oh yeah. All right, so we're talking about cultivation, right? We're talking about you know where you bring your mushrooms to, and kind of some of the questions that you've been getting around your mushrooms, right?
Sure.
And questions that I have, and some of the questions that I'm a little bit more educated on the subject. For one, because this is, you know, I also have been bit by definitely the fungus bug, right? And you could say the mushroom bug, but I've also been a chef for quite a while. And so these are often things that you experience the problems of people who actually try to, you know, like I've had people who try to cultivate morels, right? And they had to grow them in some kind of sandy soil. So then when you finally get them, you know, you bite into a morel that you've cooked in brown butter, and it's just like, you know.
Yep.
And so there's all kinds of issues like that. Now, when luckily I haven't had to explain those problems to, you know, everybody and anybody on the street, because, you know, there's a reason that I am working in the back of house, because I can't stand. It's like, look, man, all right, I don't have that because I'm not foraging for it, right?
Right.
You know, but I think that it's awesome that you guys are doing that, and I think it's awesome that you're on the show to kind of explain these differences to, you know, a slightly more wide audience. And then I also have questions on, are you trying to break into the restaurant community, and and
what does that look like?
Yeah, and what are the goals, and and because I've been part of restaurants that are very they're very, we want this, we want it now, and if you don't have it, we'll go somewhere else, and if it's not to the price point, you know, we'll work with it. And I've also worked for chefs who go, oh, you have, you know, it's like, oh, you have all these extra shiitakes, or you have, you know, more of the blue oyster, like, let's create a meal, and we'll work with that, and we're going to create a relationship with you. Now, what have you seen, and what's your take on that? What's your goals?
Yeah. I'd say, you know, scene-wise, to walk it back a bit, business model when we launched, farm model, was grow, go out and sell. I mean, again, first time coming out of a basement, going with the first like 9 pounds of oysters, as, you know, proud papas of our little children.
I bet,
they
exactly.
Sold, I mean, it sold like in an hour and a half. It was like, it was just nuts. And
Yeah.
to see that kind of demand pull from the basement again, we were happy to have like a fruiting of mushrooms. And the model was to go to farmers markets, just to be able to speak to the people, get out there, get our brand out there, and it allowed us to, again, grow and sell. And hey, if we didn't have a lot for the week, it was okay, because we'd sell out. If we had a lot, we had to go to more markets. Great. When we got real serious, you know, about 2 years ago, it was really, restaurants were part of the portfolio, because it's harvest in a bin, go from bin to restaurant. Fantastic. We can do that with 2 people. And, you know, working with restaurants, of course, that do get it, that, you know, when I show my mushrooms, they're like, oh my goodness, like, there is a huge difference in this versus what I get from SYSCO. Well, I won't mention names, but there are
Fucking Cisco.
Cisco.
Step your game up.
It didn't come on a truck. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
And the irony is now we're actually currently looking for trucks to move our mushrooms. No, it's you know, growing it locally and having hands on the product, and knowing that I'm putting my, not literal blood, sweat, and tears, but you know, putting the effort into it, harvesting, knowing the mushrooms, knowing the quality, and getting it out there. When you open up the bagged box to show the chef that's been working with, it's just been honest crap for a while, filler mushrooms as they call it, they recognize the difference. They can smell it, they can feel it. There's this point of differentiation, and so that's the experience we had really from up until about March time.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened back in March, but maybe
Yeah.
maybe listeners know. Literally every call that we made to Manello, to I'll just name like Tangletown, to Wiseacre essentially, and everyone was just like, yeah, why wouldn't I opt for this? Let me grab 20 pounds, and it was this great time for that January through February when we had this huge uptick in our growth, and we buckled down and built some new grows and expanded, and it was just like this crazy time. And then all of a sudden COVID hits and everything changed. We looked at this year as having 40% of our wholesale being restaurants. It's less than 4 now. So big difference. Thank goodness we actually have a program now called our Ugly program, and so
go into it.
Yeah. So it was a split-second decision. Like, I'm again huge into sustainability. Want zero waste from my food. Use a whole bison essentially. With the mushroom, and so I never want anything sloughed off. Even like when I cut, harvest, save that part, everything. And so looking at trying to do that. So the Ugly mushroom program came about when we moved from like 200 pounds to 300 pounds. This big uptick, and we had to go out like 25 pounds. We're like, we need to do something with this. We offer prime mushrooms at the farmers markets. What do we do? And so we offered it as Uglies as part of like riding the wave of the Ugly movement.
I love that.
$15 a pound, and just had this mound of mushrooms, and people were like, this is fantastic. And it became like one of our most successful parts of our program for the past couple of years now at the markets. And so much so now we jumped into the restaurant realm and said, for restaurants, wholesale price of X, you can get our past prime mushrooms. They're still fantastic, like 3 to 5 days old type of deal. People buy them, they put them as prime as well, and it's part of a main dish. Mostly as like soups and stews and stocks and dashi and all those sort of fantastic things like pizza. You don't need a fantastic looking mushroom to go on pizza. You cut it up and use it, in 30 minutes. So that has become a great outlet for us, and but it's the only thing that's really keeping steady with restaurants. Like the price point that we have, we've actually come down during COVID to accommodate for it. And with this next launch of restrictions with COVID, we're actually dropping it even more to offer it. Restaurants kind of a little bit of help in current times, so they don't have to sacrifice quality just to make it so their food can go out the door. Lots of meal kits, lots of packaging, exceptional costs, not the on-the-site revenue realization. So we're trying to kind of help restaurants out by offering high-quality mushrooms, nutrient-dense food at a reduced price, so they can make sure they get good stuff in their menus. Not, I don't want to say opening up a can, but it's hard right now. So
I love what you're talking about with the program, because that is, I think, at least a lot of the chefs that I know, we want to feed people.
Yeah.
And we want, it's not about, it's not about having pretty or ugly ingredients, about having good, nutrient-rich ingredients. And for anybody who is worth their salt in the industry, they realize that nutrients just goes hand in hand with flavor. Right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who are like, yeah, we gotta, shove a bunch of butter in there, shove a bunch of salt in there.
Exactly.
And that's, but that's not really how at least my circle has operated, right? And definitely the people that I have on this show have talked about, their plans for the future on how to, the last chef I had on here is, they're trying to figure out how to urbanize everything that they can, that they have a whole building now because people are, leaving left and right. And how do we feed people? How do we feed people? Not how do we do all this extraneous bullshit, to be honest with you.
Right.
And that sounds like everything that I was just talking about wrapped up into with a nice little bow. I mean, and here's the thing. So I have the Noma Guide to Fermentation behind me, and it's like, what these are when a chef gets good ingredients, right, you become part of the cooking process.
Absolutely.
Right? So the cooking process is from the soil to the plate, right? And that's become kind of a buzzword, and I'm not a huge fan of buzzwords, even though I'm on a fucking podcast, right?
What about substrate to the plate? Is that can we do that?
Oh, I love it. I love
New
it. New
buzzword. There we go.
All right,
Make a
substrate
t-shirt.
to the plate, baby. Oh yeah, dude. Merch.
Yep.
Merch drop. Substrate to the plate. All right. So, but basically, you become, all the techniques that you're using to grow these delicious, nutritious ingredients are now, it's like we're now co-workers. We're now co-chefs. We're working on the same team, and we're eventually putting out, a product that is, usually I can make anything look aesthetically pleasing on a plate, right? I can take lobster bodies and turn them into a sauce that, you would never know that I'm using the slop brains of a lobster, right?
Sure.
And the same definitely applies for mushrooms. So what I was saying with the guide to fermentation is, like, we used to get foraged mushrooms, right? And then all of I don't even know what you would call it, the stems that were stuck in the soil, right? They're not roots, so, like, I'm not going to call them roots, but they're stuck in the soil. If you were to clean them with a brush, you would eradicate the whole thing. So, many people have pounds and pounds of waste from their mushrooms. Mm-hmm. So basically what we did is we sealed them up in bags and lacto fermented them, and then used that lacto fermentation, basically the acetic or the lactic acid that was created along with the other organic material that was digested along with the mushroom, we used it in vinegars, we used it in risottos, we used it in sauces. And so you basically you take all of your waste and you turn it into product, and people went nuts for everything that we used it in. If we used it in a vinaigrette, or if we used it, like I said, in risotto, we did this vegan risotto, and it's like the lactic acid, just that specific for the mushrooms, tended to wash the starches off the sides of the rice without completely making it liquidy like water would. It worked as our butter and as our congealant in the risotto. People went nuts for it. So I love to hear that. Let's keep doing more of that. Yeah. I think that it's good to hear that 40% is, or 40% was your customer base, your clientele base, whatever you'd say, because that's the kind of people that you're going to end up working with, is people who really look to you as kind of like the sage that is bringing me. Dude, I'm going to get a close-up on this here.
Beautiful.
It's absolutely gorgeous mushrooms, man. And so...
No, I'll give a shout-out quick to... one of my longest partners in wholesale, that, to just be frank, is been intermittent as of recent, just because of the times, is Toy Ramen. So one of my first reach outs was with Toy Ramen, because a couple of fantastic first dates, how funny, with my wife, dates when we got out to any restaurant when we first had kids, which was like a coveted night, was to Toy Ramen. And we had these great little sit-down experiences at their first Selby location. It was like this intimate little experience. I'm like, I'm going to them because they make things good. Yeah. And at the current time, they actually just shut that restaurant down because it was so popular. They needed to expand this whole portfolio process. And Toy 44 was open and operational in North Minneapolis. And...
that's where Victory 44 used to be, I'm fairly certain.
Yeah. So Dan was up there. He's a cool guy. Yeah. He's like, let's start doing some cool things with these. Like, see, he's doing dashis with the chestnuts. He's, fermenting some stuff. We're actually starting to work on stocks. I'm actually getting him the cuts of my mushrooms from where I harvest to the substrate, as you were talking about. That little chunk. He's like, give me it all. We're gonna make some stock. Oh, we're gonna go, develop it for like a completely vegan option in-house with my ramen. We were talking about doing stocks to go into wholesale, and doing co-ops and all that kind of stuff. R&R partnership with Toy Ramen, and just COVID hits and just messes all that stuff up, all those best laid plans. So there are those that are out there. Another good partner has been, Wiseacre's been doing some really cool stuff with our mushrooms. And again, that pathway was there. But but it's just tough. Everyone's like, I gotta keep my employees employed. I gotta figure out my budget to a T.
Yep.
Even though I want to support, back in April and May, there were a lot of restaurants that kind of came back around again and said, we really want to have an initiative to support local. We know you guys are small. You're trying to do this thing. You built an infrastructure to make 1,500 pounds a week of mushrooms. Like, how are you doing? And we're like, it's tight. It's tough. We're doing what we can. And then ever since then, especially now, there's all bound by their books. Yeah. So people are doing what they can to kind of shop, supporting them through their, Thanksgiving upcoming, and I'm seeing all kinds of we'll come to your neighborhood with our food truck and all kinds of really cool, innovative processes coming out. But it's tough to buy local produce and to know what's out there, keep your head up and not, just be lost in the grind of the COVID.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's kind of what this show is starting to become, is kind of like a little resource hub on how to do that, right? Because most people they just don't know, right? Like, they know to go to the farmer's market, but other than that, it's like, I'm having Carla Mertz of the of Iron Shoe Farms from Princeton come back on the show in I think it's next week. But I've already, I went out to her farm, and she has all these different programs where you can buy directly from her, right? Mm-hmm. And you can buy directly from her, and they process it and deliver it directly to your house. And it's like, if people knew that they could get the stuff that's out there for the price that it is, and the quality is just like out of this world, they could never fathom the quality. So I hope that's what I'm able to do, just with this show and some of my restaurant buddies and the like. I mean, because I don't look at it like a moral quandary anymore, because we've been, it's like you work in the restaurants, it's been that for so long, right? I had my first life-changing meal when I was 17, and I've been searching for that. Searching for ways to facilitate that kind of life for such a long time, where it's not even about morals anymore. It's like, I know that you guys when I said you're ticking the boxes, it's like you're ticking all of the boxes, right? I mean, and it's turning out that even in a pandemic, you guys are starting to hire delivery drivers.
That's the craziness. Is we went from a two-man show, Nick and I co-founders, just hustling, harvest and hustle and doing what we needed to do, to now we have about 15 people in our kind of rotation. We've got about 4 that are more full-time, and almost everyone is from the restaurant industry. My strongest harvester is from a former location where we had our mushrooms, and she's like, I don't want to go back to that realm quite yet. And just kept on working. Now she's just harvesting 300 pounds a day of mushrooms. She's killing it. And it's great to provide that kind of atmosphere, but I'm still on the back end, still always thinking about keeping the lights on and keeping my employees going. Definitely. Keeping things moving, grabbing opportunities and moving forward. But it's a tight time. It is, for everybody. Yeah. So, but my kind of motivation, my model is keeping people local, because keeping that relevant and keeping people off of Amazon, like there are so many local producers out there, ourselves included, that are just trying to make it, trying to grow, survive and thrive, adapt, and sort of be relevant in this kind of crazy time, but also provide that reassurance too. Like, you can have good food, you can have a good meal with good ingredients and not pay out the nose through it, and keep it local, keep everything moving and grooving in the local economy, and we'll be fine. Support through that way. I just heard that give the max this week has been like record-breaking donations. Like, that's such a good thing. Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah. But again, there's, for every one that gets recognized, there's 1,000 other entities that are out there just going like, could really use something. What's going on,
or just straight up closing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something that I have because all of my friends are in the restaurant industry, and they're the first round, it was like, we're cutting it tight, and the second round, it's like, yeah, no, it's over, man. It's over. I mean, in terms of margins, man, it's the restaurant business is never
good
a
good
place.
restaurants. Yeah.
I mean,
The tough part is that the McDonald's are doing just fine.
oh yeah, well
they already had that grab and go model.
but we don't use that even in the same terminology. You know what I'm saying?
Is it restaurant? No, it's something else.
Well, that's definitely not what it is, right?
Right.
Like, in terms of what I know to be a restaurant, I don't even think of that in the same. I don't know anybody who fucking eats at McDonald's, dude. It's like, come on, man, let's go. All right, let's take a quick break.
Sure.
And let's get. I want to get into a little bit on what your guys' pricing is like for people.
Sure.
Just do like a quick ad, and then a couple just, I don't know, personal questions,
Sure.
because this is definitely what I'm going into in terms of just soil.
Let's do it.
Soil.
Let's do it.
All right. www.patreon.com/Minnesota Well Done. Guys, the Patreon is kicking. There's lots of good content up there already. There's more on the way. I am doing tutorials. I am scheduling a behind-the-scenes look at a mushroom grow operation. Legal mushrooms, by the way. Yeah, so there's lots going on the Patreon, and if you're not on the Patreon, you're missing out. I have a couple different tiers set up. I would go to the link and check it out. Thank you so much, guys.
Go to markets all day long, get back at like 7, sometimes 8 o'clock at night, replenish, harvest a little bit more, go back, see family.
Yeah.
And then, it was Friday was a market, and then Saturday and Sunday were both big market days too. And that was like the week for 9, almost 10 months, just straight.
Yeah.
70 hours a week. And then, this shift this year has been now actually delegating. And so it's interesting with COVID, like everyone sort of gets centralized, they get kind of hubbed out.
Yeah.
Most people have a very different experience than I have had, I guess, and Nick has had, and others in our employ have had since March, where I go to work every day. I've been busier since COVID. I was building our new grows, right when COVID hit, to expand from 300 pounds a week to 1,200 pounds a week,
Yeah.
And it's just craziness. And to be able to now kind of get out there and speak, is something I don't get to do all that often. So it's fun.
Yeah.
It's nice time.
Well, I'm glad that I can facilitate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the shit is just it's what it's all about. I mean, I don't like buzzwords. I mean, I really do appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I think that in terms of like any kind of urban farming,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is the way to go, right? Like you said, they're nutrient packed. They don't need sunlight. You know what I mean? Like it just makes sense.
And to be honest, it can't, not to go on a diatribe here, but like that's why it came into fruition. I mean, it's why it came to be. I was deeply. I think we discussed this before coming online here, but getting into the soil, getting into the land, I was bitten by the sustainability bug. Everyone, I think at first when they learn about the way the world works, really, and pull back the consumer, curtain, start doing some sourcing and looking around globally, and you're like, oh my goodness, what is going on?
Yeah.
Especially in America. You kind of want to go like to some developing region and just help them develop, like build a house, like build a hospital, like figure out the irrigation system, figure out how to make things better. So you feel kind of indebted to the world once you realize how it really works. And so, of course, then you take what you're good at, your skill set, what you've done thus far, and you try and funnel that into doing more good, and then just with the two hands. And for me, I guess that I found that pathway in farming. First, I found aquaponics. Went back to school, got my business degree at St. Thomas, got with some geeks at St. Thomas, got into aquaponics, like really learned how to kind of grow in an urban setting.
Quick question
Quick
there.
aside.
So did you
Let's go.
did you get a minor in aquaponics and then a minor in business, or how did that, or
No,
did you, was it
not
all
even-
business and
yeah,
then just aquaponics on the side, and that's what you went into?
Yeah,
Just curious.
Yeah, so I was about 22, so I'll date myself here, about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I was doing graphic design, so I was an artist. First half of my life, I was like, I'm gonna be an artist and
Yeah.
fine art. And it was just the creativity was just driving me, and went to school for that. Got in the world, spun out to freelance, and then a local creative kind of found me. Was launching a green line of products at that time. It was like 2002, 2003-ish,
Yeah.
and
So
that
very
was kind
different
of
world at that
very
point.
different world.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we were kind of having that spillover from call it like the Whole Foods era, where
Yeah.
it was like going from traditional Bath and Body Works type of products to
industrialized.
green
Yeah.
and like maybe local, like some salts with some cool things in them. Just at that time, so I was all of a sudden doing like sourcing globally shea butter and all those sort of lavender oils and figuring that stuff out.
Yeah.
I had no idea, but I was charged with creating packaging, labeling, branding, market analysis, all that stuff. And I learned the way the world works again in pertinence to food and products in agriculture and what was being produced around the world. And it just, I couldn't get rid of it.
Yeah.
You learn, you can't look back. So did that for about 4 years. I became co-founder of that company by hook or by crook, and we got pretty big, and I decided to kind of exit that, and I went back to school at St. Thomas, getting kind of non-traditional business degree. I needed to kind of learn about business, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
Doing graphic design and such.
God
so.
knows I do too, man. I'm just like fully
Law,
ignorant.
all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, investors and finance and all that. So back to school, St. Thomas, 2011 through 2014, and got into aquaponics, but didn't have a formal degree at that time in that facet. I got into sustainability hard there, helped kind of manage that part of the school system there. Geeked out with a lot of people, just loved it. Totally, just co-op was my focus. I'll just sum it up like that. But the urban farming piece of it came to me in like 2010 or so, and just was like, this makes sense. Like hubbing out systems, like you have a demand in a localized area. Why not just produce in that area?
Yeah.
And supply to that demand, a push and pull, kind of lean operation type of thinking. Minimal waste, minimal carbon footprint, and always getting fresh ingredients right to those people that want the fresh ingredients. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Instead of shipping things 1,500 miles to get to a grocery store and sit in the shelf unripened and all that kind of good stuff that we've been used to for 50, 60 years now. And got with an aquaponics firm. Had a couple of my kids, and was kind of working from home. My wife will attest to the fact that I didn't make much money at that point in time. I was kind of stay-at-home father, kind of doing a lot of networking.
I'm doing it for the earth.
A lot of networking. I was going out and putting my corduroy, blazer on with my tie and geeking out at food conventions and all that kind of stuff, just looking for a path.
Yeah.
And we met a lot of cool people. Got with an aquaponics firm and was business development director, unpaid, and learned a lot of cool stuff. And found mushrooms and just geeked out, man. Just every night when I could put the kids to bed, I'm like up until midnight, just looking at podcasts, looking at what people are doing. And went to my buddy Nick, best friend, 10 years. We've always said we want to do something together. And I'm like, this is it. Look at the trends, look at the path, look at everything that's hitting. Like, look at fucking mushroom powder. Like, it's amazing. People are just going nuts for it. And it makes sense because it's this amazing thing.
Yeah.
And so started in the basement, 3x3 grow tent. Again, we were happy to have one fruiting off a block. And we're like, look at this. I've got old pictures up in the office of like the crazy Christmas lights in a freaking LED grow tent.
The first litter.
Our wives were like, what are you guys doing? Like, it sounds great to have a 6-pack of beer and like go and stare at the mushroom tent on a Friday night. Yeah, great. But it was just the start, 2.5 years ago. And then a 5x10 tent in the laundry room, and then going to markets. And then all of a sudden we made the big leap to have me go full time and lease out a space of 700 square feet and build a grow in 2 and then make 300 pounds a week and do the thing all last year, 70 hours a week,
Yeah.
But I guess in pertinence to your question, like mushrooms made so much sense to me because, I mean, we're Minnesota, we're landlocked, you know. There's foraging here, but there's not a year-round growth cycle.
Yeah.
So growing a nutrient-dense food, protein-rich, vitamin D, all these, again, check boxes, year-round, and supplying that to people and educating people about, you don't just have to buy a filler mushroom because the recipe says a Happy Cremini. You don't have to just go to the store and buy Happy Cremini.
Yeah.
You can buy different types of mushrooms. Try them out. See if you like them. They're not just all canned and sliced anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of what, like, your base is going to start realizing is that they're actually there, right?
Yeah.
I know many people who, an older generation, but still they just don't know that this kind of stuff exists. It was it used to be a thing of the past, or I'm sorry, something very far in the future, right?
Sure.
Like what do you mean? How are you going to do that? It's like when you say we live in Minnesota, it used to be, okay, we'll start baking and start fermenting and pickle a bunch of shit.
Yep.
Or,
import. I mean, let's just be honest. Like,
yeah.
I love a good avocado too, and bananas. I mean, my goodness, I eat a lot per week, but I'm like, it pains me to do so in a lot of ways because I'm like, I know how far this thing traveled, and I know the process, and I know what's going on here. So
right, and the entire political structure that's been built around it in terms of like anything from South America. You just look at the millions of people over the last 70 to 250 years of just, true pain. And I don't want to be a part of it anymore, So, but even when I say checks all the boxes, it doesn't just check the boxes morally, but it checks the boxes logistically.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Well, mushrooms and logistics, right? Logistically, absolutely. And, I guess to that point, when Nick and I decided on Roseville, essentially for what we wanted to grow, it was because Nick just bought his house in Roseville, first house, just had his first kid. I was living in Macroveland, still do. And so I'm like, if we're going to commit to 65 hours a week, 70 hours a week, we're going to be 10 minutes from home. Or else our wives are going to kill us. So it was just that sort of that positioning. And then all of a sudden it made sense from a perspective of, we did analysis and ran data on like, where are people buying mushrooms and where are all the grocery stores and where are all the farmers markets?
Yeah.
And that it just made complete sense. Everything we came back with was, this is our demand epicenter. This is where we should be growing. And every time we go out on our routes for deliveries now, Tuesdays and Fridays, 45 stops, they make sense, and it makes me so proud to now have this model where I'm again walking the talk. We're doing this thing. We're supplying good food to good people that within 40 miles. It's just crazy. I mean, we have St. Cloud now. I will caveat with that, but it's pretty fantastic.
I love that. Okay, I want to get a little bit more into. What do you love about mushrooms? Like, what do you love about them?
Yeah.
Because okay, so I brought up a little bit about fermentation, right? And I'm going to be, I think technically the title that I'll get will be environmental microbiologist, right?
Sure.
But like, there is some kind of arcane, magical feeling when you watch something that grows on the micro scale, when you watch it grow, when you watch it eat, when you watch it create something out of nothing, and it's not something that you can see with the naked eye. There's something magical about it, right? Or am I just that guy?
No. I mean, I hope that more people are becoming that guy, that gal. And I think it's been expressed in the past year or so with fantastic fungi. I mean, like, everyone's like, have you seen the documentary? And it's such a tip of the iceberg type of a documentary, of a film. I mean, Paul Stamets, fantastic, godfather of mushrooms. Definitely read a lot of his books early on, and of course still follow him. But people don't really get it. I mean, I would just geek out hard at the first days of farmers markets, and just spend like 7 minutes talking with someone. Then by the end they'd be like, "Oh my goodness!"
Yeah.
Like, even my own mother, showing her certain things, and she's like, "Oh, whoa!"
Yeah.
But the basic element is that all mushrooms are mycelium.
Yeah.
but not all mycelium, of course, is mushroom. So it's this interesting dialogue to have with people where it's like, take what you know about mushrooms, this element that you see in front of you, much akin to a tomato or cucumber, all those sort of things,
Right.
and just back it up and understand that there's millions and millions and millions of pounds in acreages of this mycelium, this network of this fantastic element that runs through the entire world and has done so since like the birth of the world.
Yeah.
It's one of the oldest, recorded elements. It's the oldest fossil in history. I mean, they found one of those cavemen essentially that was preserved carrying mushrooms in his little pouch as a anti-inflammatory agent and a gut health agent. And I'm like, it's just this fantastic element. And when you learn about how it works, I mean, they shot it into space. And they brought it back, they brought it down to Earth, and they fruited mushrooms. It's like, it's just nuts. Elementally, I think it can be respected from most people's perspective. Yeah, from the culinary perspective, it's fantastic. It's a great meat replacement. It has all those antioxidants and, the touch points almost very similar to meat in that category. So it's fantastic gourmet. But from an agricultural standpoint, from a worldly standpoint, it is one of the only things that can actually take the energy from dead, dying, decaying, translate it, and become upfed into the world as an energy that can be utilized for growth.
Yeah. Well, and what a lot of people don't understand is that it's not just food for us, right? So like when you start to learn about the microbiome of the soil, you start to learn that many plants can't grow without the mycelium
The fungus.
there. And then they start to create relationships with the fungus to do things like trade nitrogen and so like
and sugars and
so like one of the big problems with pumping your fields full of nitrogen, and there's a lot of problems, right? But let's just just for this focus is you cut off that relationship between the roots and the mycelium, and then they no longer know how to have their little plant root markets. You know what I'm saying? So it's elemental on the scale of everything needs fungus to grow. It's an integral part to pretty much every ecosystem that that has plants in it, right?
Yep.
So everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, there's a not rational, but I guess a monetary reason why there was antifungal agents within fertilizers for such a long time. Because why would you not, if you're Monsanto and others, put that in there? So you're controlling the territory. You've got Terminator seeds. You've got all these elements that make what you're supplying to the farmer. This seed proprietary for the first time ever in the world. You've got this patent on a seed because it goes in. You sell it to a farmer. It does its thing one time and it self-terminates instead of germinates. And they take the ability for that seed to interact with the fungus. So they put all the elements that's needed in this little capsule to be sold as a product, essentially. And you take out the fungal element of it because that's natural. Why would we want that? All the good stuff that soil does, that the earth does, that water does to that plant has been sort of taken away from the earth so you can commoditize it.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just thought it was because they put the nitrogen in the soil, the mycelium was like, peace. I didn't know that.
No, they've put antifungal agents in it too.
Wow.
To kind of own that whole process.
Dude. Wow.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, like that. That's really what it ties back to for me. Is like you can kind of like we've jumped all over the place. We can jump politically. We can jump morally. We can jump in the fantastic realm where we feel like we're in this world of fantasy. We can go into the logistics. We can go into the community aspect, and it's all about fungus, baby.
Yeah,
it's all about fungus.
And to that point, to kind of segue into like community and such, as a company, as a farm, we've got pillars, one of which is sustainability. The irony is as a business, like you can't be a sustainable business and enact all of your sustainability principles right away.
Yeah.
If I held myself to all the things that I wanted to do within sustainability, I would have made it 6 months, because it's just too expensive.
Yeah.
So things like compostable packaging, like our tills are compostable. Our film and a sticker is not quite yet. We're working on it, but price point wise, we just couldn't afford it right now.
Yeah.
And to that point, like making our own blocks, we couldn't do that for 2 years. We had to buy and fruit blocks to learn how to do that until we could actually scale to a point where it made sense. We could actually learn it, evolve as a business, and now we actually have the we call waste, the resource that comes out of the tail end of the process after we fruit on the block a couple of times. Well, we've got this 10-pound element that's been myceliated, that's fruited mushrooms. We can't use it anymore in our process because it's not, I guess you could call it profit positive to do so.
Yeah.
It has to sit in my shelf, and it has to pay kind of rent on my shelf. And if it can't pay its rent, then it has to go.
Yeah.
Well, it's still a great resource, and now we're looking for outlets at a more massive scale now to output it. So we've got our organics, recycling bin now, so it's going to a good home from now on. And we're looking for farms to work with. We're looking for ways to kind of recapture it, make into mushroom actual compost.
Yeah.
And
That's what my first
Yeah.
thought process was. If it's been myceliated and it's kind of broken down, there's got to be a way to
Yeah, and my goodness, I mean, we don't
feed
have.
it back into the soil.
I haven't had time to do some like data analytics work with the U of M and Ori, this great organization locally, but. Personal testament, like my parents who live very close to me at the farm gave them like 15 mushroom blocks to put in their soil, their garden beds last year. And my goodness, the cucumbers this year, like 3 feet long.
Wow.
I mean, not saying it's like some kind of miracle, but really there's this fantastic element that happens when you introduce fungus to your natural environment over the last year. I know that they were using probably some treated elements. I don't want to say miracle grow, but things like that to kind of help encourage soil growth. Well, you learn that the more natural things you do to it, the more you keep it that way with, putting in some mushroom blocks, putting in some decomposing matter, letting it kind of grow and then die back down, feed the soil. It does a lot better for you.
I love it. I love everything you're doing. I mean, everything you're doing.
Cool.
I'm super happy that you were able to come on. You've been very forthcoming. Is there? Do we touch on everything? Did we touch on the projects that you wanted to? We talked about.
Oh my goodness, we've got so many projects. We've got.
Let's go. Man. Let me check our time. Yeah, dude, go for it. Let's kick it out. And it doesn't need to be rapid fire. Let's just talk.
I mean,
let's talk more about what you got going on presently. We've talked about future.
Yeah.
We talked about past. Let's talk about present.
Cool. So I mean, we're always looking forward. Nick and I are both God, how would I say it? But using the term "bees to the wall," we're just forward moving people, and all of our employees, all of our workers, like harvesters, we're all in it just to keep on going and just to keep on evolving and kind of working with the times and be successful. So, most current things on the plate, I'd say our block remediation program. Looking to get outlets for that. We're launching with Roseville actually in partnership with Visit Roseville, working on this education model. Where again, another pillar for me is like education. Like I want to help educate, and so we're working with them on getting into some schools with a mushroom kit. So distance learning, getting them an actual mushroom kit with the block itself of mushrooms, slice it open, have a covering over it, keep the humidity up, and watch this thing grow. So like elementary age, junior high, even adults, we're looking at doing this advanced grow kit, but keeping humidity in there. I brought home one for my 6-year-old son for his birthday. We did 2 mushroom blocks, like golden oysters and king trumpets. I was actually completely surprised, to be honest, that they grew so well. I'm like, well, shoot, why don't we have these big build grows? I could just do this in a Tupperware. But it worked really well, and it kind of gave light to the model where I want to. We're working with certain schools to try and get these kits out, do Zoom meetings, meet the farmer, like say you can do this too. Like this isn't just pie in the sky. Look at a picture of a farmer and a label of cheese type of mental thinking. It's like we're here, we're doing it. A couple of dudes like just by hook or by crook and just gritting it out, making a business out of something they love. And we're a produce provider. We're farmers, man. Yeah. And we're finding a way to make it through. But like to be able to offer these kits to people that are at home right now, all winter long, just kind of doing the COVID thing. growing some fresh produce on site, like being able to buy this block and see it grow and giving them life in the middle of wintertime and food is pretty cool. So we're trying that out, launching with the preschools, but then also we're probably going to launch on the website in the next couple of weeks here to just offer to general public and say, here's our grow kits. You know, stop by, pick them up. We'll probably offer them at farmers markets too, and just see how they go, because it's pretty fun.
Well, I think it's fun to an extent where it will probably change a lot of people's perspectives on how you eat, how you grow things, and because it's like when I talk to people about like where my journey started, often it goes back to like the kitchen, right? Where when you do a roux, right? When you mix butter and flour and you cook it, right? Mm-hmm. It blooms at one point. And when it gets to a certain point, it starts to like do a little wave, right? And it blooms. It becomes something different. And when I first did that, it changed my perspective on everything, and I became this sponge for knowledge, right? And that's what you're doing to, you know, a generation of people, at least in the area.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, when we talk about, well, you know, it costs a lot more money to get this sticker because it's, you know, if we want it to be compostable or recyclable, or you get what I'm saying.
Yep.
Then, well, now we have this whole new, you know, children and young adults growing up and learning that this is the way to do things. All of these things become cheaper because you have a whole population of people starting to run on this idea, and it becomes culture.
Mm-hmm. I will frame it up very simplistically as I view it as people are falling into, I guess, one foot in each camp. There's a left foot in Amazon, not like the rainforest. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And there's right foot in the I want to learn more. I got this big Google machine right next to me. I got my phone. I got the world at my fingertips. I can learn all about this stuff. And there's this new kind of cause thinking, which has to come with rolling your sleeves up, which is kind of the caveat to a lot of, I wouldn't say millennials, but millennials. You gotta do. Yeah. You got to roll your sleeves up and do it. So you got the Amazon one foot. You got the I want to be a maker. I want to be a doer. I want to support local on the other foot. Those two things need to walk in the same pathway, and hopefully end up kind of walking on the other pathway with it, the local, the maker, figuring the world out. But this, especially with COVID, is sort of exacerbating this model of I want to do this. I want to have this cause mentality. I'll donate. I'll do these things. But it's so convenient to shop online and get it from the big box, and it's just out there. So you got this, I'm pulling back the curtain, I'm looking, I'm exploring, but then you've also got, I'm going to go ahead and close the curtain because it's convenient type of thing going on, which is what Amazon provides. And again, like speaking to the sort of compostable and the label motif and all of that, like I'm of the thought where, you know, I knew I couldn't be part of a not-for-profit. I love not-for-profits. I've been a part of them. I understand it. But to look at 6 months and be like, I don't know if I'll make it 6 months without doing a lot of calling.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like, I'm going to roll my sleeves up. I'm going to work 70 hours a week, and I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
I know I can, because this is the way I'm going to do it. If I can't quite get those compostable labels right now, it's okay. I'm going to work my butt off and increase my margins and do what I need to do so that in 4 months I can get those compostable labels and make it happen. And this is kind of how Nick and I operate. It's like, we're going to make it happen. You know, you can't always see around that turn. You just have to go with it, and it just keep on moving forward, knowing that your principles are resilient and they are going to prove out in the end, even if you have to kind of just find the path along the way. In the end, you know where you're going.
Wow, dude! Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yep.
This has been phenomenal. I can't thank you enough. It's been a great episode. Just everybody, Lance Ramm, R&R Cultivation, they're killing it, and I'm kind of awestruck right now, dude. Awesome, you're doing it. You're doing the damn thing, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate what you're doing as well.
Thank you. Like, subscribe, share. I'll see you guys next week.
shiver, writes a new song. I can almost hear them singing along as I keep digging away. Her love rubbed me raw, methamphetamine, alcohol, if only left me stay. Buried in the backyard, long after gone to my childhood dark bodies. Our faces remain. Some of them were my friends. Some were more like enemies. Shouldn't matter now to them. Should've said something much to me. Last night I took apart most everything in your garage and got myself some dollars and cents. Taken off to St. Paul, and I will surely spend it all on Hope Street, the last house on the block.